Good afternoon. I'm Ben Wojcik. I'm a member of the ACC Northeast chapter, as well as the programs committee. Today, I would like to introduce our panel for the session on transforming your legal operations approach. First is Eric Greenberg, who's a partner in Seyfarth Shaw's real estate practice in Boston. Next is Tanya Hampton, who's a senior legal project manager with Seyfarth. And joining them is Tara Brewer, who's the head of legal project management with Boston Scientific. I'm sure everyone's excited for the program, so I will turn it over to the panelists.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for the introduction. So I will get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. The legal industry has seen unprecedented growth in the last several years, which has only been exacerbated by the pandemic. With this growth has come incredible and long-lasting change to how attorneys engage in the practice of law. In-house legal departments in particular have perhaps witnessed the most profound change as the legal industry has grappled with a new hybrid work dynamic. With flexibility comes more responsibility. In-house departments are being asked to do more with less. And the general economic uncertainty has led to budget belt-tightening all around. All of this despite companies growing and expanding and doing more work than ever before. In order to keep up with the increasing demands of your business units, in-house practitioners must transform and evolve their legal ops approach. So what does this mean? Our program today will cover what tools and strategies your in-house department can use to become more efficient, cost-effective, and expedient in today's cutthroat legal environment. We'll provide you a roadmap to navigate the evolving landscape for legal ops. Our roadmap includes the following stops. First, process improvement practices to identify bottlenecks, unnecessary steps, and create more efficient paths for streamlined work. Our next stop, using customized technology that is appropriate and useful for your needs. We'll also stop to separately cover the emerging world of legal AI. The third stop would be change management. With change, there's always resistance. We'll discuss how to successfully deal with your change management issues within your own organization. The next stop would be data analysis, how to collect information and use it to your advantage. And our final stop on the roadmap are practical applications. We'll bring everything together and offer examples of how these tools can actually be used in practice. Now we'll go through each of these roadmap stops in greater detail. As we go through each topic, remember these strategies and tools apply whether you're an army of one legal department or a large department in a Fortune 500 company. I'll now turn it over to Andy, who will kick off with an interactive poll before we get to our first stop on the roadmap. Andy?
Thank you, Eric. Yes, so if you could all please get your smartphones handy and you can get your camera open. You don't have to follow the steps on here. We're gonna have a QR code for you to scan on the next slide that's gonna be way easier, but we're gonna have a poll that speaks to some of the things that Eric was just talking about, specifically resistance to change. So if you could have your phones ready, I'm gonna navigate over here now. You can scan that QR code. It'll bring you right to our poll page. And the question is, why do people resist change? We have a bunch of options here. Select as many of those that apply to you, your organization, what you think about other people, and we'll see these results come in here and what people are thinking. All right, good response. Seeing it move a little bit here. Fear of the unknown, disruption of habits and routine, lack of communication around change, loss of status job. All right, great response. Thank you all for voting. We are going to have one more interactive poll a little bit later on, so keep those phones nearby. But just to give people an idea where things stand, I'm going to kick it over now to Tara Brewer, who's going to take us through the process improvement section.
Great. Thank you, Andy. I'll be going over the themes of process improvement methodology, which is a primary part of the legal operations enablement engine, so to speak, which involve identifying, analyzing, and enhancing workflows to make them faster, more accurate, more efficient, and more reliable. Next slide, please. So process mapping is a technique used to visually map out workflows and process. I think many of us can relate to the visualization in front of us. And the purpose of process mapping is to really flush out how a process works in a more concise, straightforward, and user-friendly way. There's really no right or wrong way to map. It all depends upon what you're intending to solve. And we've done it many different ways. I've done it many different ways: PowerPoint, Visio, even Post-it notes on a conference room wall. High-level map can work for a simple explanation of how a current process works, maybe 5 to 10 steps, or a detailed mapping like you see here can be done to gain a deeper understanding of the parts of the process for better problem solving. By mapping out a process from start to finish, you can have a much better understanding of how the entire process works in reality and more clearly identify inefficiencies and make those improvements that you need. Next slide, please. So how to get started. So first you have to identify your problem or what it is, that process that you want to map. You want to gather the right stakeholders. You want to list the current state activities and methodically write out the sequence of steps. The picture on the right is a really good representation of what a Kaizen event really could be for a process improvement exercise. And then as a group, once you're done, analyzing the map to find those areas of improvement. And one thing I'll offer to this group is, in my experience, I've been a part of many, many process improvement activities. There are some tips to remember. Is that at the outset, be very clear about the purpose and the benefit of what you're trying to accomplish. Something that's more difficult than you might think. Agree on the scope of what you're mapping. Maybe you want to limit your scope to something much more easy for the team to map. Involving the right stakeholders. Your stakeholders and subject matter experts are the most important piece of that puzzle, and without them, you're not going to get an accurate picture of the process. Having various groups and functions involved in your process mapping, it's wise in some cases to have maybe an impartial third party or someone that's not involved in that process to do the mapping. And a very big part is try to avoid problem solving during your mapping process. I think that's a pitfall that a lot of people, myself included, you can step into. So that's an important thing, is just to get that process out and then work on your problem solving after. Next, thank you. Identify those inefficiencies. That's what a process map shows us. Those bottlenecks, gaps, and issues. It helps you delegate responsibilities to various individuals, and it simplifies everything into smaller steps for better understanding. And more importantly, as it mentions here on the bottom, it creates documentation of the process, which, as a legal operations function, sometimes it's important to retain, how things are done in a playbook of sorts. So it's memorialized in some way. So that's another added benefit to having a process map. Now, there are different business process improvement design methodologies you can use. In most cases, it depends upon what you're trying to map. In this visualization, it's specific to litigation case management. But as you saw in the earlier slide, process review can look very different using boxes and shapes. There's all types, Six Sigma, lean business process, which is something that, Boston Scientific uses quite frequently. Kaizen events for continuous improvement, and then business process management, the whys analysis, the who, what, when, why. So there's many different types. It just all depends upon what you're trying to evaluate. Next slide, please. So project management, very near and dear to my heart as head of project management. The process improvement plan is part of a larger overall project management plan. So this plan, it outlines execution and control stages of the project. So it serves as a sort of blueprint for achieving project goals, milestones, requirements, even managing resources for your project. And it just helps with communication to the entire team. So after you define and organize your team, you can assign deliverables to your team members who will perform those tasks required and allow you to monitor the potential risks involved in your projects. Maybe you're going off of target date and you need to maintain visibility to that. And it just helps guide you through the project lifecycle. So next, I'll be covering technology solutions. And one of legal operations duties is to incorporate technology solutions for our team. And like contract management tools like CLMs, e-signature or e-billing, some of the big items that you would think that meets the needs of the organization. And the promise of legal tech solutions, it just empowers you to do more with less. That's all I was going to say. And whether you're working with clients as outside counsel or an in-house counsel with another corporate function, using technology to collaborate and share data is proving to be a priority. So here's a great example of Seyfarth's homegrown platform, Link. It's reflecting how they're using tech to enhance various aspects of their legal service delivery. But between clients wanting to have more insight, or maybe your corporate colleagues wanting to have a shared platform, it gives better transparency to the work involved. So not everyone can develop and deploy a sophisticated platform like we just saw. So now there's other tools that are available. Microsoft products, a great place to start. Excel, like it's mentioned here. Also, Microsoft SharePoint in particular can provide some user-friendly database and workflow solutions. Smartsheet, excellent tool for project management. I'm a huge fan of Smartsheet. Fillable, PDFs, templates, electronic surveys, and other knowledge management resources. And final note, if you have an IT team, they're a great resource to tap into to identify if there are business systems available to you that you may not be aware of. So just a quick note there. And now I'll hand off to Eric Greenberg to cover AI.
Thanks, Tara. So while technically a subset of technology solutions that Tara just covered, legal AI is important enough to be discussed on its own. AI is revolutionizing legal research and practice. It's rapidly analyzing massive amounts of data, which leads to efficiency gains, cost savings compared to traditional legal methods. However, much of what we've heard in the news has focused on the horror stories. The litigant, for example, who submitted a brief full of citations to imaginary cases and imaginary courts that the AI platform they were using created out of thin air. Now, this naturally has led to skepticism and hesitation of legal departments to use and embrace legal AI. We're here to tell you there are ways to use legal AI properly and that there are trailblazing platforms already available. So let's get to the next slide, please. So what is AI? What is artificial intelligence? AI is the capability of computer systems or algorithms to imitate intelligent human behavior. You may have also heard the term generative AI. This is artificial intelligence that is capable of generating new content, for example, images or text, in response to a submitted prompt from a user, such as a query, by learning from a large reference database of examples and information and other data. So what does that mean in the real world? Next slide, please. Well, law firms and legal departments and legal practitioners are already using AI. For what? Contract review, drafting and preparing routine documents, legal research, and even e-discovery. Next slide, please. And what we're seeing in the marketplace for legal AI, we're already seeing firms and legal departments immersing AI usage into their legal ops function and just their legal practice function in general. This includes the implementation of sandbox company or firm-specific AI tools, including chat and document review. For example, a chat GPT specifically tailored for a law firm or for a legal department. Data information companies such as Thomson Reuters have created their own versions of ChatGPT, and we're seeing many more getting created. Practitioners are also using AI to analyze and summarize existing agreements, cases, and other legal information. This is especially helpful if your company needs to review a large data set of documents in just a short period of time, and also to do it in a cost-efficient manner. AI is performing that legal research by searching and referencing actual legal databases. One popular AI tool is Copilot. This is an AI service that essentially acts as a one-stop shop legal assistant, does everything from basic legal research to contract analysis, document review, and even document formatting for different courts and jurisdictions. Next slide, please. However, as I mentioned before, there is some caution in the wind. With the rise of any new legal ops tool, there's also the potential for new pitfalls, and AI is no exception. So what are some of these potential pitfalls? Accuracy. Errors are possible. Even though it's AI, even though it's machine learning, errors are still possible. The work produced from AI always needs to be checked by a human. Just like we check the work of a junior associate or a junior member of your legal department, you need to check the work produced by AI. There's still also bias in AI. We have to remember that the current systems are built by humans. While the machines and the AI are still learning, humans are still providing most of the inputs, and including the databases that the AI is pulling from. AI is still in its infancy, so there's going to be a learning curve. What we get out of it is what we put in. We still have to teach the AI how to think about the law. It's important to learn how to create useful prompts when using the AI, and specificity is key when working with AI. And finally, and this is going to be a growing concern, there will be data privacy issues. Be careful sharing anything confidential with your AI. Any of the inputs may be implemented into the AI's system knowledge base for future use and reference. What happens in AI likely stays in AI. So definitely work with your outside firms, your in-house departments to work on confidentiality procedures with your AI. Now, I don't want to end on a down note, so I'll finish by saying that the future of legal AI is very, very exciting. It is transforming the legal landscape. It enhances research capabilities, it improves efficiency, and in some cases, it's starting to predict case outcomes. Tools like Copilot offer tremendous benefits in terms of cost reduction, quality improvement, and the legal industry will continue to explore and adopt AI technologies to improve the legal practice. How AI is changing the practice of law is a good segue to our next legal ops roadmap stop, change management. Tanya, hand it over to you.
Thanks, Eric. So as we continue on our journey, change management is something that is a growing and evolving process point. Change management involves people, it involves problems, it involves ways to get us from point A to point B successfully. Change management has opportunities for failure. So today we're going to take a moment to think that through and talk about what change management is, how to effectively implement change management using some processes and some tools and techniques that we can talk about. And then we'll also discuss a couple of examples that may be near and dear to your heart. We're going to start that off with a poll. So Andy, do you want to take that off?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. So again, we have our poll here on the screen. Same deal as before. You can use your smartphone, scan that QR code. This one's going to work a little bit differently. We're building a word cloud with all of you. The prompt is change is ... So you can enter one word, you can enter more than one word. Once you type one in, more will come about. You'll have the chance to put in more. So we'll see what we think. Good. All right, good start. Positive crowd today. Oh, there we go. Hard, scary, inevitable. I think that covers some of what we're speaking to here today, yeah? Exhilarating, time-consuming, promising. That's a good one. But as you can see, that scary is pretty big there in the middle. So I think that gives us a good idea on how people are feeling. We'll give this another few moments so we can see how this ends up. All right, risky. That's a good one to come through there. All right, so it looks like opportunity, another good one. But inevitable, constant, and scary. Look at kind of the three biggest things, which I think ties into a lot of what we're talking about here, and especially what Tanya is about to speak about. So I'm going to kick it back to her to take you through the rest of our change management discussion.
All right. So yes, change is scary, change is hard, change is inevitable. Tara said it earlier that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think the one on the screen now probably speaks for itself. In the spirit, however, of change, I'll go ahead and spend the next few minutes using this as a backdrop, along with another practical example, tying this to the legal field and more specifically to the legal operations function. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, you'll probably would have seen Blockbuster video in many neighborhoods across the nation. However, with the introduction of digital streaming, change was inevitable, as you mentioned. The value proposition shifted. So without the ability to effectively implement change strategies that could allow adoption and adaptation to changes in the changing times, the landscape evolved. So we went from a brick and mortar cassette store to mail order to our current guilty pleasure of click and continue, or as many say, Netflix and chill. But this change, this transition, it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a straight point A to point B line. There were undoubtedly hurdles. There were obstacles that needed to be surmounted. And if I were a betting woman, I would bet that in the background, there were champions who were cheering on the change. There were enthusiasts who were out with their ear to the ground, listening to what was being said, listening to the changing needs. They were at windows, they were at lunchrooms, and they were everywhere in between, listening to the conversations and the concerns of those who will ultimately be impacted by upcoming changes. And then there were also drivers who were keeping an eye on the end goal. Where were they trying to go? And they were trying to move things along and keep them going. No one of these roles were more important than the other. They all worked together, and they all had an impact on the success or the failure of the changes. So with that as a backdrop, let's try to dig into how this applies to legal. Next slide, please. So I borrowed this quote from one of my colleagues. It says, change fails because those responsible for the change did not understand the impact on those involved in the change. So that really resonated with me because it's a telling quote, and it's applicable in a variety of situations. My major takeaway from it was that change does not happen in a vacuum. So I think that's the key takeaway here. When thinking about change management, it's not one person pushing forward and deciding that there needs to be a change and getting there on their own. There's a ripple effect. There are multiple levels of stakeholders. You have those who are making the decisions. You have those who are implementing the decisions. And you have those who feel the weight of the decisions that are made. At its core, change involves people. And they're not all the same people. They don't have all of the same values and perspectives. Sometimes they aren't in the same department. sometimes they don't feel the impact equally. So if I'm going to put my project management hat on for a moment, change is a result of a problem. So you've identified the problem, and someone has decided that it's a big enough problem that a change needs to come about. They come from an effort to improve. So they come from a good place most times. However, if they aren't communicated properly, then there is an opportunity for failure, and that's what we want to try to avoid. So I'll give you an example. So imagine you're a new AG, and after a few weeks on the job, you notice that some of the business professionals that you're supporting are doing things differently. So you want to step in and take some things off their plate to help them out. You want to help them out, but you also want to help yourself, and you see this as a good thing for the department, the legal department, as well as the company as a whole. So you have a professional who's engaging outside counsel directly. You have another who is giving work to your very, very overwhelmed paralegal. And then you have someone who appears to be blowing with the wind. This is going to affect your ability to control and manage your legal strategy as well as legal spend. So you think that this is a good change. You think that taking everything to yourself is going to be the best solution, but maybe it's not. Next slide, please. So changes oftentimes fail. So if we take a deeper look at that scenario, when things are forced upon people, they naturally exist. So that goes back to the statement that change can be hard. It's not what we are predisposed or pre-wired to do. What does it mean to be forced? It means that there isn't enough good communication, the information or the explanations shared aren't enough to help inform and educate and get the buy-in from those who are impacted. Maybe there's not enough time for those impacted to live with the idea that things are about to change. And maybe we haven't given those who are impacted the respect that they need to understand that what's been done previously was a great effort. We need to celebrate those achievements and talk about how we can improve going forward together. So remember that effective change management involves working with real people with real ideas, and they have real feelings. They've invested their time and energy, and they need to feel seen and heard. So they need to accept, and they need time to accept and adapt to the change and break the old habits. Breaking old habits are actually hard. We saw that in our word cloud. And there's no wonder that there are shelves and shelves of topics and books that talk about change. Because really, breaking a habit requires a grief period. You have to have time to work through those emotions, the fears, the insecurities. Can I handle this? Am I smart enough? Will I lose my job? So those resistance points that we talked about in that first slide, those are real. So effective change management strategies, they plan for this, and they proactively allow that grief period to be a part of the process. We have to be intentional about it and train our brains and those of the people impacted by the change on that piece. Next slide, please. All right, so how do we do that? Let's look at what change management really is. It's the application of a structured process and set of tools for leading people, the people side of change. So in our example, there were multiple people impacted by that proposed change. So before pushing that solution forward, our AGC should talk with them, hear their perspective. We call this technique voice of client interviews. Our AGC should talk to her overwhelmed paralegal, each of the business professionals, and maybe even the GC in that situation, or others who've been at the company longer to understand how things have previously been run. On the surface, they seem unnecessary, right? Why do I have to talk to all of these people just to understand what's going on? I see what's going on. But those interviews can accomplish a few things. Primarily, they'll give your stakeholders an opportunity to be heard. Buy-in goes a long way. Having people understand why you're doing it and hearing how that impacts them, hearing their pain points. It's an effective management tool, and it allows possible resistors to the change. Even if they don't become supporters, they can at least become neutrals, and they won't push back on the change, and that minimizes your likelihood of failure. So once you've interviewed everyone, the other thing is that now you have a data set, right? So you have supporting evidence and supporting data to have a better understanding of why things happened a certain way in the past, how your proposed solution may actually work, or maybe it won't work. You're more informed, and a more informed stakeholder is more likely to succeed. So if our AGC decides to move forward, now they're in a better position to do so. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to leave you with change management on a few models that we have. Listed here are 6. I won't go into them in detail in the interest of time, but these 6 models are proven change management models. I use DMAIC in my day-to-day. It is straightforward, it is simple, it's easy to follow, and it's something that that you'll see over and over again. So next slide. So I ended change management talking about the data and how important the data was. So on our next stop on our roadmap, we'll talk about some data analysis highlights. So showing your work and showing what you're doing is a great value proposition. So the legal department is oftentimes seen as a call center. Having the data to support what you're doing not only shows your value, but it also is a tool that you can use to inform your risk strategy and provide opportunities for analysis into areas that there may be training needs or just changes to your overall strategy. So at its core, data is meant to be analyzed. It gives you that means for comparison. You can establish your baseline and see how you're tracking against it. If you're implementing changes, it allows you to measure them, and it shows your productivity over time. So by having this, you have data that's related to your KPIs. Your data is going to tell a story. You need to be able to identify what's important to not only your stakeholders, but to your risk strategy so that you can effectively manage and provide counsel to the business and show your value proposition. This mitigates your risk and allows you to be best informed. So next slide. Let's talk about a few examples. So what you'll see here at the top is just a dashboard. This dashboard comes in a variety of different forms. You can have heat maps that shows where your exposure is in different locales. You can have quantitative bar charts that shows your volume of matters or litigations in various locations. You can have quantitative metrics that shows the amount of exposure, financial exposure that you have, or the sum of spend that you have in different areas. The second chart is a scatter plot. So if you are working in litigation, you can see how your settlements are coming in. If you see that most of your settlements are under a certain threshold, then you know that that's a good point for whatever whatever topical area that you're working on. If you see that your settlements are coming in all over the place, then maybe you need to tighten your strategy so that you can have that cost predictability or that exposure predictability. And then the bottom chart is related to employment. So if you have charges coming in, maybe you can adjust your policies because you have exposure in certain areas. Or if this were the geographic locations, then maybe you know that you have policies in certain jurisdictions that need to be altered. What this data does is allows you to pivot. It allows you to have that 30,000 feet view of what is going on, where it's going on, and it allows you to effectively manage. Legal operations comes in strongly in helping you do so. Next slide.
All right. For those of you who are interested in CLE credit, we do have a new CLE process here at Seyfarth. So one way you can do that is right now, you would actually take out your smartphone, scan this QR code, and fill out the form that's there. The code, and I will read this now, is SS9714. However, you will all get a copy of these slides as well. So if you don't have the moment to do it right now, or you don't have your phone handy, that's just fine. Just a slightly new process. Good news is it's one less email you have to send, unless, of course, you email us asking, how do I get CLE credit anyway? We'll still answer, don't worry. I'm gonna kick it over to Eric to bring us home.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Tanya. Well, just listening to Tanya's discussion on data analysis and change management, what strikes me is that these tools that we're discussing on this roadmap, the legal function, the legal ops function, it's all interwoven. You use data now, you use technology solutions with your data analysis. You analyze the data, which leads to change management and process improvement. So as we sort of close this up, just learning how these tools work together is very important. So we want to close the program with a little discussion on practical applications of the evolution tools that we just discussed. As you begin your legal ops function evolution, it's important to seek out what we like to call quick wins. So next slide, please. Anything from micro changes to reinforce small changes in your legal process. I'll give you an example that we've used at my firm. When we get new deals in for a client that provides a lot of deals, we need to open up a new matter. And previously, before we changed our process, I would send one email to my biller. I would send one email to a paralegal to put the new deal on our tracking system. And then I would send a third email to the conflicts department. So I'm already sending 3 emails out. We developed a process where we would create an email group with all those 3 people, as well as an information sheet that I would fill out. And I would put that email together, send it to one email address. It would have 3 different purposes, but it was solved by one email. And Andy, it was music to my ears when Andy says one less email. I think anytime that you create a process that results in one less email, it saves time, it saves, it's more efficient. And that's a micro change that can be a small change in your legal process that has big results. So that is a quick win. It's an easy win, and it's something that you should strive for. Other quick wins, seeing your process improvement yield immediate changes. And then again, small changes over time that have a compounding effect and can drive larger overall change. So in my email example, if I am opening up 500 matters for this one particular client, I used to send 1,500 emails, if you think about that. Now I can reduce that by a lot. We discussed change, next slide, please. As we discussed, change management can be very difficult. I love the word cloud, saying that it's scary, that it's inevitable, it's tough. So we encourage you to try out pilot programs on a smaller scale. When implementing a pilot program, consider selecting solutions to prevent and eliminate the sources of a problem, testing the solutions by piloting, auditing, and validating process changes. And then you can then implement solutions at a larger scale that you have piloted and were proven to be successful. So start small, and if it works, you can go big. And once you've done a pilot, you can then allow yourself to train personnel on the revised and the new improved process. Next slide, please. Here are just a few examples of real-world process improvements driven out by legal ops functions. Anything from large-scale contract workflow processes, general legal email mailbox. I talked about one email mailbox for opening new matters for a law firm. We work with lots of clients that have created their own legal email mailbox to be a one-stop shop for all requests from outside sources or from internal sources, instead of 10 different people getting emails from hundreds of people. It's a triage system, better data management by using email boxes. And then using third-party matter management systems. I know a lot of in-house departments where resources are scarce sometimes don't work with matter management systems, but the investment in one could save a lot of time and efficiency in the long run. And then again, a simple one, DocuSign. We've worked with clients that for the longest time wanted and insisted on signing documents with wet ink, and implementing a DocuSign execution process for documents greatly just saved on time, wasted resources, and inefficiencies. And I talked about piloting a program. Maybe if you want to implement DocuSign electronic signatures for a particular workflow, maybe just do it for one type of deal or one type of assignment or one type of item instead of doing it throughout your entire organization. And then when that pilot program works and works very well, then you can expand on it. Next slide, please. And finally, just some key themes to wrap everything up. Find ways to partner with your business unit on process improvement initiatives. We tend to work in silos. It always works better when the legal function, the legal ops function, and the business unit are on the same page and working collaboratively. And to do that, Tanya mentioned earlier, voice of the client type of initiatives, conduct periodic listening sessions, conduct satisfaction surveys with your department, with your business units. Really listen to who your clients are. Recognize a balance between day-to-day of legal practice and operational initiatives. They really are interwoven. Realize the importance of KPIs and look to all kinds of sources to measure success. We have to remember change management starts from the top. And then finally, look to outside providers for other examples of success stories. Seek out CLEs, other ACC programs, bar associations. There are a lot of resources out there. And you have to remember, you are not alone in your challenges. Look to your ACC friends and your fellow law departments. Next slide, please. Actually, we covered that, so we can go to the last slide. So I want to close on behalf of the panelists by thanking everyone, all of you, for joining us. The tools we discussed today are really just the first steps in the evolution of your own legal ops function. We could have spent well over an hour discussing each and every one of the individual roadmap stops, and there are many other roadmap stops and tools that can help evolve your legal ops function. This was just the tip of the iceberg. One thing to remember is you build out your legal ops function within your legal departments, and as I mentioned before, you're not alone. There are helpful resources all around you. Our friends at the ACC, your outside counsel, your in-house peers that are attending this today, reach out to them. The issues and challenges that they're facing, that you're facing, they're facing, and everyone attending this program is facing. We'll now open the floor to questions. There is a chat box available. If we're unable to get to any question, or if you want to explore a topic in greater detail, feel free to reach out to the New England ACC, any of today's panelists. Andy mentioned the slides from this presentation, along with our contact information, will be provided to all attendees. So thank you for your time. Good luck with your legal ops journey, and please, we'll open up to any questions you may have.